Well, another year has passed and Apple has released another iPhone. Actually two. We have the 4.7-inch iPhone 6 and the 5.5-inch iPhone 6 Plus. But which one is best for you? Is it worth upgrading to Apple's latest and greatest, or should you wait another year? Well, before we can answer those questions, let's find out what's actually new with Apple's iPhone 6 and 6 Plus and compare it with the year-old iPhone 5S. The iPhone 6 is definitely a big step up in terms of design and display size when compared to the iPhone 5S. But what's even bigger than that is the iPhone 6 Plus. Surprisingly, there aren't too many technical differences between those two devices, but before we get into everything, let's go ahead and take a look at specifications. The iPhone 6 is rocking a 4.7-inch IPS display with a resolution of 1334 by 750, coming in at 326 pixels per inch. We also have a dual-core Apple A8 chip clocked at 1.4 gigahertz. We have 1 gigabyte of RAM, an 1810 milliamp hour battery, and up to 128 gigabytes of storage. In comparison, the iPhone 5S has a 4-inch display with a resolution of 1136 by 640. We have a dual-core Apple A7 processor clocked at 1.3 gigahertz, 1 gigabyte of RAM, a 1570 milliamp hour battery, and up to 64 gigabytes of storage. So how is the iPhone 6 Plus different from the iPhone 6? Well, there are three things to consider. We have a 5.5-inch 1080p display, optical image stabilization, and a 2915 milliamp hour battery. So if you're not really into big smartphones, you're not really missing out on much with the iPhone 6 Plus. That being said, we're going to focus the majority of this video on the iPhone 5S versus the iPhone 6. So let's go ahead and start out by taking a look at design. Both devices feature the same Lightning port and 3.5mm headphone jack, but as you can see, the speaker and microphone grills have been slightly reshaped. On the right side, you'll find a nano SIM card slot on both devices, but on the iPhone 6, we actually have our sleep-wake button, whereas the iPhone 5S actually has a sleep-wake button on the top. The left side is home to the volume buttons and mute switch, but as you can see on the iPhone 6, the volume buttons have been redesigned to closely resemble Apple's 5th generation iPod Touch with more of an oblong shape. One of the best features of the iPhone 6 is definitely its 4.7-inch display, and when compared to the 4-inch display on the iPhone 5S, it's overall just a great experience. You can see more on the display at once in certain situations, and in my opinion, this display looks miles better than the one on the iPhone 5S. It's crisp, vivid, it has a nice contrast ratio, and it's still pretty much one-handable, but if you have trouble using it with one hand, Apple has implemented a new feature on the 6 and 6 Plus called reachability, and with a double tap of the home button, you can move down the top half of the screen so that you can access it without having to move your hand around the phone or use your other hand. One software feature that's exclusive to the iPhone 6 Plus is the ability to use the phone in landscape mode on the home screen and within certain apps. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be a big deal to everybody, but you'll get a similar experience that you'll find on the iPad when in different apps like the Settings app or Notes or Messages, things like that. You'll also find the same Touch ID sensor that was first introduced on the iPhone 5S, but with NFC on the iPhone 6, you'll also be able to make purchases using Apple Pay and the Touch ID sensor. The iPhone 6 is significantly thinner at 6.9 millimeters when compared to the 7.6 millimeters of the iPhone 5S, but it's also heavier than the iPhone 5S, coming in at 129 grams. As you may have noticed, Apple has ditched the chamfered edge design of the iPhone 5S, and we're left with more of a round design like you'll find on the 5th generation iPod Touch, and we also do have a curved glass front, which is a nice touch and adds some elegance to the device. On the front side, you'll find an earpiece on both devices and the same 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera with 720p video recording capabilities, though the iPhone 6 does win in the rear camera department. We do have the same 8 megapixel camera sensor with an f2.2 aperture, but we also are including focus pixels with the iPhone 6 Plus, which is a new feature of the sensor that will allow for faster and better focusing during photography and video. We also do have video up to 60 frames per second in 1080p and slow-mo video up to 240 frames per second in 720p. Now, one of the downsides here is that because the iPhone 6 is so thin, there's actually a protruding camera on the back backside. Now that doesn't bother me very much, but it's definitely different from the flat design that was found on the backside of the iPhone 5S. Another difference here are the antenna bands that you see on the back of the iPhone 6, and that has changed from the glass panel design that was introduced with the iPhone 5 and continued on with the iPhone 5S. It's also important to note that the antenna bands are more prominent on the silver and gold version of the iPhone 6 than on the space gray version. As far as performance goes, the iPhone 6 is great, but so is the iPhone 5S, and in my opinion, there's not a huge difference between these two devices, and the benchmark results speak for themselves. Overall, I think the iPhone 6 is a great device, but it's just a little bit thinner, has a bigger display, and marginally better specifications. So is it worth upgrading to? Well, I'll let you be the judge of that. Let me know what you think about the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus down in the comment section, and let me know which device you currently rock. Are you planning on upgrading to the iPhone 6 or 6 Plus? Let me know with a comment down below and hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this comparison. Also, feel free to subscribe for my iPhone 6 review in the future. Thanks again for watching, everybody. This is Dom, and have a great day.